Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and based on the response to the trailer for my new book, Occult Mafia, you are all very intrigued, but you also have a lot of questions. So, I'm making this video to answer those questions. Starting with, what exactly is Occult Mafia about? I gave you a tiny excerpt from the very beginning of the novel, but that alone doesn't really tell you very much, and the cover art reveals a little more information, but still leaves a lot of questions. Maybe you read the description on the Amazon page, but on the off chance you didn't, here's the basic description. If you haven't read the summary on Amazon yet, I'll read it for you here now. A synesthetic werewolf working as a private eye in Chicago, a mummified Egyptian goddess forgotten in a Boston museum, an amphibious creature hiding from the government in Montana, a vampire of divine origin waiting for his destiny in Texas. In 1958, these four are sought by the infamous monster hunting organization known as the Occult Mafia, but they are not the hunted this time. Instead, they are being brought together to stop a warlock who, if unopposed, will open the gates of hell. As the team is assembled, one question looms in their minds. Can the Occult Mafia, a group with a history of killing monsters, really be trusted? Paranoia, conspiracies, and ever-shifting loyalties may spell doom for them and the entire world. And that's all I feel like giving away. You want to know the rest? You gotta read the book. The other question I've seen a lot of people asking is, does this book have any connection to Operation Red Dragon? Is it set in the same universe? Is it a sequel, prequel, what? Is there any connection there? The answer is yes, there is a connection. They are set in the same universe, and if you pay close attention in Occult Mafia, you'll notice a few hints sprinkled throughout that reference Operation Red Dragon. That being said, though, you do not need to have read Operation Red Dragon in order to understand Occult Mafia. Occult Mafia is its own standalone story with a clear beginning, middle, and end. There are references here and there, yes, but they do not overwhelm the story. It is not so intrinsically linked to Operation Red Dragon that you can't understand it. Now, of course, don't use that as an excuse to not read Operation Red Dragon. I think you should read that as well, but I admit I'm a bit biased. And yes, Operation Red Dragon and Occult Mafia will cross over one day, but there are more stories to tell in both series before that happens. So for now, the two stories remain in the same universe, but otherwise separate. Again, for the moment. And in case you're wondering, yes, the sequel to Operation Red Dragon is being written. It's just taken me a while because I've kinda had to change some of my plans about where the direction of the story was going, which happens during the writing process. Another question you might be wondering is, what age is this book for? Operation Red Dragon, my first book, was fairly family friendly. Not that it's a kid's book, and not that there aren't some mature themes in there, but they're presented in a way that you could read it at any particular age. I mean, parental discretion, of course, if you have kids, but I tried to keep it PG. So if Operation Red Dragon is PG, Occult Mafia, I would say, is PG-13. It's a darker story, it goes to a slightly more mature place, it's a bit more violent, has a bit of language, so I wouldn't recommend that you introduce that to kids. Like I said, PG-13. 13 and up, it's pretty safe, but anything below that, I wouldn't recommend it myself, but ultimately it's up to the parents' discretion. But again, don't get the wrong idea. I didn't go into full R-rated territory. I'm inspired by classic horror for this novel, and I try to stay within the realms of what classic horror might have presented. It's maybe skewing a bit towards Hammer, but staying more in the realm of Universal, if that makes any sense. And if you're a horror fan, it should. If you're wondering how it's available, well, I self-published this on Amazon, so you can only really get it at this point as either an ebook on the Kindle or as a made-to-order paperback. Now, Operation Red Dragon was adapted into an audiobook, and you may be wondering if that's going to happen with Occult Mafia. Well, The Operation Red Dragon audiobook happened because the company that adapted it was connected to Severed Press, which published ORD. Occult Mafia is self-published, so that particular scenario is far less likely to happen. At the moment, I don't have any hard plans for that. Operation Red Dragon was adapted to audiobook because the company that adapted it was connected to Severed. They, have a deal in place, I suppose. And they usually adapt whatever sells really well at Severed, and my book happened to be one of them. Occult Mafia is self-published, so if an audiobook were to be made, I'd either have to somehow pitch it to a company or do it all myself, which, maybe I could. At the moment, though, it's just digital and paperback. So if I do come up with a way to do an audiobook, I'll let you guys know. For the moment, though, it's only those two formats. So I'm sorry to disappoint anyone who may have been hoping for an audiobook, but when you self-publish, that's the way it goes. And last but certainly not least, I should give credit for the cover art. Because, as you can probably tell by looking, I didn't draw this. I mean, it looks much better than anything I could do. This cover was done by Anna Olsen. You do not know her because this is her first time doing anything like this. I do not believe she has any DeviantArt or Instagram or any other place that she does her art publicly at the moment. This is the most public she's done so far. Now that she's actually done a book cover, who knows? That might change. I don't want to speak on her behalf. But I wanted to make absolutely sure everybody knows that's who did the cover. And she gets her credit in the book. She has her own bio alongside mine that she wrote. And I personally think she did a great job with this cover. I gave her the description of what I wanted, and she realized it quite splendidly, really. So, if you were wondering, that's who did the cover. And of course, you may be wondering, what else is on the horizon now that Occult Mafia is out? Well, obviously, I'm working on sequels to both Operation Red Dragon and Occult Mafia. Now, as for whether or not there's anything else, there is. I do have one other book that is pretty much set to go in terms of editing and structure and whatnot. I just need to get a cover for that as well, and it should be out later this year. Fingers crossed that it gets out later this year. So keep your eyes open for another book trailer in the near future. But until that happens, go ahead and enjoy both Operation Red Dragon and Occult Mafia at your leisure. I hope that answered at least some of your questions, but there are other questions that can only be answered by reading the book. So what are you waiting for? Links are down in the description. Go ahead and get yourself a copy of Occult Mafia. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Like and subscribe, then go down to the description to find links to follow us on DeviantArt, Patreon, and Twitter. While you're there, you'll also find the Amazon links for the original novels Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, and The Occult Mafia. 2 books I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.